So for my latest video, I felt like I would cover another thing that had been very debilitating for me, and that's intrusive thought OCD. And intrusive thought OCD is, without getting into some long dissertation on what obsessive compulsive disorder is, you'll have obsessions and you'll have compulsions. And obsessions, those will be the thoughts. Compulsions sometimes will be the rituals that you'll do to deal with the obsessions. You can have either or both. So anyways, I just figured I would talk about my personal experience with intrusive thought OCD and also give some pointers that I've learned to help deal with this. And anyways, so to explain exactly how intrusive thought obsessive compulsive disorder affected me, I will explain it as it's a loop of disturbing thoughts playing in your mind. It is not something that you're choosing to think about. It is literally on autopilot, and it will be the most disturbing thoughts that you could think of. It can have to do with violence. It can have to do with, something to do with sex. It can have whatever is going to disturb you. Obviously germs, but it's playing on a loop and it seems impossible to stop. And anyways, I wanted to get into some anecdotes that had happened to me with this. I remember that there was one time I was at a restaurant eating breakfast with my mother. And this is a little over 20 years ago. And, I love my mom more than anything. And here I'm sitting across from her eating breakfast, and I'm worried I'm going to, punch her in the face. This thought is playing on a loop in my mind. So I'm trying to listen to her, talk to her, but this thought is just playing on a loop. Another time, this intrusive thought OCD, I was over at my sister's house. She had a parakeet, and it was flying around freely. She loved this parakeet. It talked. It said full sentences. And here I am. I'm worried that I'm going to just smash this parakeet with my hand. I don't hurt animals. I love animals. It is completely against everything that I am to ever do anything like that. But that's what intrusive thought OCD is. It's the worst, the thoughts that bother you the most, playing on a loop over and over and over again. And the key to getting past this, obviously, we can't fix our minds. They haven't found a way to just completely fix some of these mental health issues. But there are strategies you can use to help minimize this intrusive thought obsessive compulsive disorder. Just like in my other videos about panic attacks or about health anxiety, the more you react to it, the more intense it's going to be. Intrusive thought OCD is the same way. If you let the thought that's playing on a loop, that you're not deciding to play on a loop, that's just going by itself in your mind, if you react to it like, oh my gosh, that's so horrible, it can destroy you. I know for sure, I was very fortunate. I had somebody in my life who had intrusive thought OCD. And so I had an idea about what this was. If I hadn't known that, I would have ended up in a mental institution or maybe worse, because it really can affect your identity, your opinion of yourself. These thoughts are the things that you would want to never think about, never enter your mind. And now here they are playing on a loop. And if you react to it, if you think, oh my goodness, is this who I am? Is this, is this what I secretly want to do? Then all of a sudden you start to question your identity. And it's just the opposite. Think about this. If you really wanted to do those things, you wouldn't be disturbed by the thoughts. You'd be like, hey, if I get opportunity, and I'm not going to face consequences, I'll do it. It's not going to bother you. See, people who do bad things are not bothered about thinking about bad things. So there's your proof that you're not a bad person. You're not evil. That this is your mind, the circuit in your mind essentially being just messed up. And it's on autopilot. So what do you do to minimize this? Well, don't react to it. When you have one of these thoughts, just let it play. It's not easy to do, especially when this first happens to you. If this happens to you, for me, I had 31 years where this never happened. I was a worrier, and I probably did have some mild obsessive compulsive disorder, but never any intrusive thought, OCD. And when you have that, it makes you question everything. It makes you question who you are. Why would I think this? Why would I think the worst thing in the world? And, it's like the most vulnerable people. That would be, if it was an elderly person or a child, then, it would start going off. But you actually just have to ignore it. And when you get those thoughts in your mind, when it's playing on a loop, just let it go. Let it play and tell yourself, categorize it as OCD. And if you've had a fair amount of your life where you didn't have these thoughts, then it's intrusive thought OCD. If these thoughts bother you, it's intrusive thought OCD. It is not your personality. It's not, some evil that you've buried inside you. It is your mind is misfiring and it's playing the most disturbing stuff on a loop. And your mind knows what bothers you. So that's why the enemy is so difficult to deal with, because we know what bothers us the most. I know somebody with some mental health issues who always talks about wanting to take their brain and set it outside of their body. And when you're having intrusive thought OCD, I think everybody would feel that way. But so learn to ignore it as hard as it is. Just let it play. If it's pestering you, say to yourself, that's intrusive thought OCD. That's not me. That's just OCD. Let it go. What you will find if you ignore it, if you can get yourself to ignore it, you will find that it starts to dissipate. Another thing you need to do, or at least was very beneficial for me, is exposure therapy. Spend time, even though you might pour sweat, spend time in those situations that activate the intrusive thoughts. And spend time in those situations, and you're not going to act on those thoughts. And so what you're doing is you're teaching yourself that this is not something that you need to be worried about. And as you do that, as you expose yourself to situations that may cause anxiety, may cause intrusive thoughts, and you don't act on them, you're proving to yourself that you don't want to. But I can't stress enough, if you really wanted to do these things, they wouldn't bother you. When a serial killer is thinking about doing what they do, they don't hem and haw about it. They don't feel bad about it. They just, as long as there's no consequences or there's opportunity, they would act on it. So if it's bothering you, then you're not a bad person. This is not you. Don't let intrusive thought, obsessive compulsive disorder define you. It's nothing to do with who you are. And in fact, as I also mentioned in some of my other videos, people with anxiety conditions tend to care really deeply about things. And that's why it hurts so much to have thoughts of, we care about people. And when you have thoughts about hurting people in any way or doing something, disgusting, some disgusting thought, again, YouTube is a format where I'm not going to get extremely candid about the thoughts, but just go wherever the worst thought in your mind is. That's where intrusive thought, OCD, goes. For those of you out there who have this condition, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. A couple of other pointers I can share. If you have intrusive thought OCD, don't share your thoughts with neurotypical people, people without the condition, unless they are familiar with intrusive thought OCD and they understand it. Because you could cause fear or concern. They may feel that you're experiencing some psychosis or there's something, deeply wrong with you. But that's why, again, you need to seek the help of a professional. And I might as well say again, I am not a doctor. The purpose of this channel is not to, rehash what you can research on Google about mental health. And it certainly isn't to replace the treatment that you should seek from a professional for these mental health conditions. But what it is a way to give a firsthand experience and accounting of somebody who's dealt with some of these things and who, I can't say I'm on the other side. I don't think we could ever really say that. You have good days and bad days, and some days things can pop back up. But the way you react to them is so important. Essentially, try not to react to them. And so as soon as you get around somebody who's familiar, a professional who's familiar with intrusive thought OCD, you can explain some of the thoughts that have been troubling you, especially if they're going to do exposure therapy. Most of these anxiety conditions, talking about them is not going to do a lot of good. I mean, don't get me wrong, being able to get out that this is happening to you is important, but the particulars are not important so much as learning how to deal with them. So that's one of the things. Another thing with intrusive thought OCD, stay busy. Stay busy. That's another huge thing in working through anxiety, all forms of anxiety. Try to stay busy. Medication, again, might be helpful with intrusive thought OCD. I know some people have had a lot of success taking medication, and other people have had the opposite. But get with a professional, talk with them about what they think you should do. Get your sleep, get your exercise, and also try to stay busy. And that will be the best thing. And when those thoughts come up, just tell yourself, that's OCD. That's not me. That's not some hidden part of my personality. That is my mind basically trying to terrify me. And your mind knows how to terrify you because it is you. So I don't want to make a really long video here. Just try those simple steps. And again, don't react to the thoughts, and certainly don't let them identify you. To change your view of your identity, because that has nothing to do with who you are. That's about where I want to end this one. I'll probably do another video at some point, more in-depth on intrusive thought OCD, but I just wanted to get it out there, talk about it. And maybe somebody sees this and they're having that problem and they think, oh my God, am I evil? Is there something wrong with me? Is it psychosis? Am I going insane? And they'll say, oh yeah, I saw that guy on YouTube. No, he had the same thing. It's not. And that's really the purpose of my channel. Just to make people realize that there's somebody out there who can empathize with what they're going through, and also that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, you might end up back in the fire a few times, but if you know the strategies on how to deal with these things, you seek the advice of a professional, you will make it. You will get through it. People with these conditions are intelligent, creative people, analytical people, and people who love others. That's why your mind ends up doing this. That's a huge component. You have to have a very intelligent mind to conjure up some of the things that obsessive compulsive disorder does. Anyways, I'll bring my video to a close. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Tell a friend, especially if you know somebody who's going through this. Thanks a lot, and until my next video, take care.